Now that free agency is essentially over, let's look at a few underrated pickups. After losing 2 elite shot creators last year, the Brooklyn Nets signed Lonnie Walker to help with their offensive output. After starting his season great, Lonnie's role as a scorer was Austin Reeves' job by the time the Lakers were in the conference finals. Walker was still able to get some shine in the postseason, as his 14 points in the fourth quarter helped the Lakers take a 3-1 lead against the Warriors. His new team's defense was great after the KD trade. Using the 27-game sample size, the Nets would have had the 7th best defense in the league statistically. On the other side of the ball, the Nets would have ranked in the bottom 5. While the production from players like McHale, Cameron Johnson, and Dinwiddie helped, the Nets really could have used some more offense. And that's exactly what Lonnie can provide, as a shooter, shot creator, and finisher at the rim. After getting swept in the first round, the Nets will look to Walker to generate some points for the franchise. The Milwaukee Bucks exited the playoffs with much to be desired, and the same can be said for their new signing, Malik Beasley. With little money to work with, having 2 starters hit the free agent market, and after their playoff failures, the Bucks face a challenging situation heading into the offseason. Not to mention how the moves they make will impact Giannis' free agent decisions in 2025. While the Bucks lost in the first round, Beasley averaged 3 points on bad shooting this postseason. After getting traded from the Jazz to the Lakers in the Westbrook deal, Beasley was never able to consistently produce for LA. Outside of his short stint in Los Angeles, Beasley has been a good role player, averaging 11 to 13 points on respectable shooting splits. If Beasley can replicate how he played for Minnesota or Utah, he'd be one of the best role players on a championship caliber team. Even if he plays more like he did on the Lakers, the Bucks only signed him on a 1-year, $2 million contract. When looking at the history of the Giannis-led Bucks, having shooters like Beasley is critical to their offense. Having players who are great at shooting from beyond the arc gives Giannis driving kick opportunities as well as good spacing for him to score. If players around him can't give him that spacing, things like the Giannis wall are even harder for him to deal with. I really like this low-risk, high-reward acquisition made by the Bucks. With the return of Lonzo still in the air, the Bulls signed another defensive-minded guard in Javon Carter. While he played backup for Jrue Holiday last season, he might get the starting spot for now. In the 39 games he did start last year, he averaged a respectable stat line while shooting over 40% from deep. While he is a solid starter, he would also be a great backup to Lonzo if he does come back this season. Chicago has created one of the best defensive backcourts in the league with Carter and Caruso, and if Lonzo does return, the Bulls would have 3 guards who can lock up at any time. Last year, the Bulls attempted the fewest threes in the league, which we all know is a bad spot to be in the modern NBA. Adding Javon, who's coming off of a year where he attempted the most threes in his career, while still being over 40% from deep, can really help out this team from long range. One thing about this signing I'm really interested in is to see how the minutes between Javon, Caruso, Ayo, Levine, Kobe, and a healthy Lonzo would spread out, especially if the Bulls begin to rebuild their roster this year. But Chicago's front office hasn't given up on this core yet, and they've brought in a defensive pest to help on the perimeter. Leaving the Bulls this offseason is Derrick Jones Jr., who's now headed to Dallas. Before the offseason started, I made a video talking about the teams with the most interesting summers, and Dallas was one of the 4 teams I mentioned. From then to now, I really like the moves that they've made. If I had to use 2 words to describe Derrick's play style, those words would be high flyer. One of the biggest strengths in Jones' game is his athleticism, and that trait makes him a highlight generator as a lob threat, especially since Luka can get the ball to Derrick in the pick and roll. Doncic is absolutely one of the best playmakers in the league right now, and I'm really interested to see the ways he can get Derrick the basketball. When it comes to the other side of the game, Jones can definitely hold his own. Dallas looked for positive defenders to surround their all-stars, and Jones fits the description. If Derrick Jones Jr. can play his part on D while still being a good lob threat, the Mavericks would have made an overlooked signing with the addition of a new rotational piece. Another new Maverick I'd like to highlight is Grant Williams, who joined Dallas via sign and trade. You know how I mentioned a video I made before the offseason? Well, one thing I wanted the Mavs to do was to sign some of the defenders that were available free agents. When looking at some of the best defenders they could sign, I brought up Grant as a name. Not only was Grant one of the best defenders available, but he has also been a nearly 40% three-point shooter in the last 3 seasons. Another thing he brings is playoff experience, as he's gone to multiple conference finals and the NBA Finals in 2022. Grant has won more playoff games than every player on this team except for Kyrie. After missing the playoffs, the Dallas Mavericks had a lot of work ahead of them, and now they've had one of my favorite off seasons this year. With a 3-point sniper that also was one of the best defenders in the free agent market, the franchise made a nice move getting Grant Williams. After being the starting shooting guard role player for the Bucks, Donte DiVincenzo moved around the league for a bit. After getting traded to the Kings at the 2022 trade deadline, he joined the Warriors before the 2023 season began. This offseason, he joins his old Villanova teammates Josh Hart and Jalen Brunson in the Madison Square Garden. DiVincenzo is one of those players that could do a little bit of everything. Donte can shoot at a great clip, can defend, and is a decent enough passer. Even though Steph, Clay, and Poole took a lot of guard minutes, Donte was still able to contribute as one of the best role players on the Dubs. Now in New York, he'll be able to lead the bench unit with Emmanuel quickly or even start a few games. One of the biggest issues with Donte is that he misses a lot of games, but in 2023, he played the most games in his NBA career. The New York Knicks' new signing gives him a jack-of-all-trades that could help the team in multiple ways. Some of these teams can improve with their new additions. I also looked at teams that can improve next year, If you want to see if your team will be better, click the video on your screen.